Thank you for joining me today's webinar on adding and editing contact records. Both new users and experienced staff members are invited today to join us in this roughly 30-minute training. So today we'll be discovering on how to add and edit data within your DataBank system. The few learning objectives that we have today is how to enter data, understand the contact record layout, and how we can create an activity node using various methods. And to be specific, just two methods. All right, so again, my name is Maria and I will be hosting today's webinar. Before we dive in, I always like to start off by talking about our help drop-down menu. So this help drop-down menu is going to be located towards the very bottom of your left-hand side menu. And here you can access our support center. So our support center is going to have our webinar recordings available, many of our frequently asked questions, support articles, and a lot of how-to guides. There is also like a search bar that you can search for keywords. And so if you're looking for automations, you type in automations in the search box and whatever support article is available will be displayed for you to take a look at. So I always feel like that's a good starting point. We also have user guides on our various modules. So if you're wanting to look more in-depth information about a specific module, let's say the forms tool, we have updated several of our user guides. So just want to make sure you know that that's available for you. And last but not least, a support request. We have the ability for you to enter any questions, any comments that you might have in regards to your DataBank system on whether how to run a query, whether you want to change a setup within your DataBank system. This will notify us via our own ticketing system, so it's just the best way to get a hold of any support/tech staff. And if you haven't done so already, we do have many more trainings to come within the next couple of months or so. So if you want to take advantage of that, feel free to put in the free training sign up and you can go ahead and register for those as well. All right, so to dive in, I am going to go ahead and show a couple different things. So when we are searching for a contact record, let's say we want to do a quick find. So here I am going to type in Damien and we'll say this is his last name. And so here, right off the bat, I can see that this person does not exist. So if I click to add a new record, I will automatically be prompted to add this contact record. The other way where I could enter a new contact record is by going to the contacts dropdown and click on the add contact. So both ways will allow me to add a single contact. In this case, because I already was in this particular page on the top right corner to do a quick find, I'm just going to click on that. So one thing to keep in mind, excuse me, is that each contact record will have the same fields. So whether we are talking about an organization contact record or an individual contact record, all of these individuals will have this same layout that we have here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through each section and kind of see what each field necessarily represents. So here I'm going to put in my contact's name and we'll just do this. And so here you do have the option to put in two names under one single contact record. Ideally, we say this is best when, it's married couple and they just share one contact record. So here, let's just say that Damien works for the data bank. We'll notice the difference between an individual contact record and then a company contact record in just a moment. But the key distinction is that if I don't have a first and last name, it just have a company name, that will be what determines that it's an actual organization slash company contact record. All of these fields that we are going to be seeing just now are completely optional. There's no specific field that you need to have in order to create a contact record. So that's just one thing to keep in mind. Here, as you can see, I am getting a suggestion of what, my system thinks the address might be. And so the reason why you are seeing this is because we do pull information from the USPS database. So what this means is that we primarily use this to fit national standards. So as you can see, St. Paul was spelled out completely, whereas if I were to put St. Paul and go to the next page, I can actually verify. So if it's not verified, you'll see that it's like grayed out. But if I click on this little check mark, it's going to go ahead and verify it and change it to the USPS database. Here, when we are looking at the phone numbers, the format does not matter. However, if you are looking for, to use our mass texting feature, you do want to make sure that you include the mobile phone number. And so here, you can, like I said, the format doesn't necessarily matter, but you do want to make sure that whether you are planning on using our SMS announcement tool, that you are opting or allowing individuals to opt in to receive that communication. And so we're going to talk about that later on, but to create your subscriptions for the SMS announcements, you would just go under communication dropdown and click on publications. Again, we're not going to dive into it, but just know that that's available. So again, to reiterate, you can use space, dashes for the mobile number. It's A-okay. And for the email address, so let's say that I have Damien's work email address, and let's say that I want to include Damien's personal email address. You can do so. You can use a comma, you can use a semicolon to separate both email addresses. There's a couple things that you want to make sure to keep in mind. So for example, let's say I send out a power mail and Damien is included with the group of contacts I'm sending out this power mail to. So because I do have two email addresses associated to his contact record, the power mail will be sent out to Damien at thedatabank.com and Damien at live.com. Again, because they are in this single contact record. Had I had, two separate contact records with one email address pertaining, to Damien at the databank and then the other one to Damien at live, and let's say Damien at the databank is the one that has that subscribed to that publication, then it would only be sent out to Damien at thedatabank.com. And it would omit Damien at live because he's not subscribed to that specific publication. But in this case, because it does have two email addresses and we are going to subscribe him to that publication, it's going to be sending it to the both email addresses. The other thing to keep in mind is, for example, we have a household, and that household does have their own individual contact record, but they share the same email address, right? So they just want one inbox for that email address to be received. The system is only going to be sending the power mail once, and it will only send and it will have the activity record associated to the contact record that had that email address first. Excuse me. So, for example, if I am Maria at the databank.com or Maria Tester, I have the same email as Damien at the databank.com, and we both have that same email address. It's only going to be recorded under Damien's contact record because he was the first one that had that email address first associated to their contact record. So sometimes you'll notice a discrepancy between the number of deliverable emails, and that's going to be one of the reasons why you'll notice that discrepancy. But we'll dive a little bit more into that when we talk about our PowerMail tool. But if you do have any questions, feel free to let me know. The website, again, this field is completely optional, but it does create a hyperlink. So for example, I'm including www.thedatabank.com. So when I look at this contacts profile, it'll allow me to do a click through link to that specific website. Now here you notice that I have a custom text input, custom checkbox, custom dropdown, multi-select, an example of what this checkbox is, and flag fields, and so forth. So these are probably going to be looking a little bit different on your end. And the reason for that is because everyone does have personal custom fields associated to their specific data bank. In this case, because this is a demo databank system, we have an example of what these fields could look like. But again, depending on the information that you are trying to track, it may or may not, you know, have checkboxes or open field text that you can incorporate. If at any point in time you want to modify your existing fields and either edit the existing options or completely replace it with something new, feel free to open a support request and we will be more than glad to make these changes for you. There is no cost associated in doing this, but please let us know if you do have any questions or if you want to walk through in the fields that you currently have in your system. All right, so here what we have here is a custom text input. So this is an open field and it does have a maximum of 256 characters. So pretty much if you ask an open-ended question, you know, the individual or constituent can type in the answer, let's say on your sign up form, and this is where it will be listed. Again, it's mainly used for open-ended questions, but it's not necessarily so great when you are trying to search for this particular data, you know, because people can do typos and so forth. All right, and here we have a custom checkbox. So here, this particular one and the issues of interest is pretty much the same thing. The only option is that, or the only difference is that the issues of interest does have several options that you can check off, whereas here, if it was a single question, it's like, do you want to be contacted for volunteer opportunities? You can have a yes or no and have individual check that off when they are either filling out your donation form or sign up form. Here we have a drop down. So again, The drop down options may be different to what you may see in your data bank if you do have one, but it does only allow you to select one option. Whereas the multi-select, if you do a control clicked, it's going to allow me to select more than one option, and that's the main difference between the drop down and the multi-select. So here I'm just going to go ahead and say environment and clean water. When we go down to the flag fields do have a max of 2 characters. So flag fields are mainly used for checkboxes, single checkboxes, or if you are wanting to have like a drop down, we always say that you can have the screen name be displayed something else. So like let's say you are using all of your other personal fields and the only one you have available is a flag field, but you want to use it for a gender field. We could potentially add that. The only thing to keep in mind is that the data value would have to always have a limit of 2 character codes. And we will let you know what those 2 character codes would be. And you'd only see that when you download that information. So in this case, I'm just going to do that as an example. Flag fields can also be used to your own discretion. So if you want to tag records with a specific, you know, 2 character code, you can use so. And we're going to talk about that in just a moment once we finish going through all these fields. As part of your data bank, you do have 2 amount fields that you could use for your own purposes. Again, the amount field is only numerical values, no letters, nothing like that whatsoever, just numerical values. You also have the opportunity to have 2 date fields, so whatever it is that you may want to use it, whether it's a birth date, join date, etc. We can incorporate those for you. And salutation fields are just for titles and custom names associated to your contact record. And then notes. So for example, if this was, Robert, and Robert likes to go by Bobby, you could go ahead and list that note here. And it will be summarized within your contact record. Sources, this just means how this contact record got into your data bank. So if they fill out a sign up form, they'll have that source code of that sign up form here. If they also made a donation, that donation source code would be also listed here. And then dub group, this is more so if you are, you have a group of duplicates and you want to group them under one grouping. You could associate a specific number for this group of contacts that you want to group to clean up later on in the duplicates tool. And then for the contact preferences, so here by default, email, postal mail, phone are always going to set to be to okay. The one thing that is going to be automated and will be changed depending on this under the circumstances is going to be the email. So whenever you send a power mail and let's say someone is on vacation, vacation responders trigger a soft bounce, and after 3 soft bounces, this gets switched to a bad email because it's considered a hard bounce. So let's say the person comes back the next week and opens up the missed emails that they missed during their vacation time, then the email preference will be switched to okay. And then, of course, if someone has an email address that no longer exists, then it's going to be switched to bad email. And then, of course, if someone does decide to unsubscribe from any of your publications, then it will be switched to unsubscribed. The only reason where you will always want to select always okay is when someone is a staff member of your organization and you just want to make sure that they're always set to okay. Like I mentioned before, the SMS text messages, you want to make sure you give the opportunity for your constituents to opt in. So by default, it's going to be set to blank. And then max requests per year, totally optional. Again, we don't exchange any third-party information at all, but we just have this option, in case you want to have it. And then district information will get added since I did have an address. So here I'm going to go ahead and click save. And the congressional district, county, state senate, state house is added to my contact record. So now that I've created my contact record, we know that on the left hand side is the identifiable information such as the email, web, and if I had a phone number, it would be listed here. I can also incorporate a photo in this case, and I can show you what that will look like within a contact record. Over here on the right hand side is the custom information. So all your personal fields related to that um, contact record are going to be listed in this particular section. Earlier I mentioned how we can distinguish between a company contact record and the single contact record. So if I were to just remove the first and last name and just keep the company name, you'll notice that that'll be switched to the main contact records name. So again, that's going to be how you can distinguish between an individual's contact record and a company contact record. So I'm going to go ahead and click save. Also, you'll notice that I have history. So this is always going to show me activity history and payment history. All these other gray tabs are gray because they don't have any specific information associated to that section. So I don't have any meetings associated, no contributions. Let's say I'm going to subscribe this individual to our weekly newsletter, our yearly report, and our monthly e-news. So I'm going to go ahead and click submit. Now that I've done that, I'm going to go to history and we'll notice that it's listed in white. All right. So now that we have, a basic understanding of the layout of the contact record, I'm going to go ahead and show how I can add an activity record. So you'll notice here under the activity history, this is going to show me pretty much a summary of any recent activities. For a more in-depth, if this contact record had been with us for years, we would go to the activities tab. If at any point in time you, your colleague, or someone within your staff is having communication with Damien with either of these two email addresses via email, you can add this BCC email address within that thread, and the email interaction that you have between yourself and, in this case, Damien, would be recorded and added as the activity. Again, all you need to do is click on this two paper icons to copy that email address and put it within that email thread. So to add an activity, I click on the plus icon. And one of the new tools that you can add within the activity section is that you can schedule a series of emails to this particular contact. Depending on how you want to use it, the case scenario may be different. But let's say I want to start on a future date, so this Friday. And in this case, because I've already typed and used this activity type, it's already within my dropdown. If you don't see it within your dropdown, what you're going to want to do is type in scheduled email within the new text block. And once you do that, it's going to populate the PowerMail folder, the PowerMail issue, and so forth. So here I am going to select the welcome series and I want to say hey, welcome, to our data bank. And one, I've already created this PowerMill folder and I've already created all these PowerMill issues, which is why I am allowed to select that from my dropdown. I can assign this to myself, indicating that I am the one that created this scheduled email and change any other necessary information associated to this activity note. So what's going to happen is that Damien is going to be receiving this scheduled email on January 14th and, welcoming him to our nonprofit. The other thing that you can also do within the activity section is you can also schedule a to-do task. So to do that, again, I'm just selecting a future date and I am selecting the to-do. So here, I can actually assign this to myself, to a colleague, to another staff member that's associated within your database system. And so I would select from the corresponding dropdown. And keep in mind that whatever email address is associated to that user, that's going to be where they're going to be receiving this to-do task notification. So if I assign it to myself and say, follow up with Damien regarding volunteer opportunities, right? So what it's going to happen is I'm going to be receiving an email telling me, hey, uh, this you have a to-do task. This is what you're going to do. The text that I just said, follow up with Damien regarding volunteer opportunities. And then I can also click on a completed task and it will be recorded within my activity history. So again, the activity history, not only can you use the scheduled email or to do, but you can also use it to record any interactions that you have between this contact and yourself or your organization. And I know we're running a little bit out of time, but the last thing that you can do in regards to creating activity notes is that you can tag slash create an activity note for a group of contacts. The main thing that you want to do is you want to select those contacts first, the group of individuals you want to do this for. Go under data tools and then click on tag selected. So, okay, because I didn't have anyone my selection, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this little icon located on the top right corner. And here you'll notice I do have other options. So you can subscribe this contact to an automation, which is similar to the scheduled email, but a little bit different. And you can do an mail merge, and you can also add this contact to your address book. But what I want is I want to add it to my selection. So now I'm going to go back to the tag selected, and you'll notice I have the same screen that pops up, right? Your activity note. So again, you want to have your selection of contacts first and then go through the tag selected to add that same activity note to that group of contacts. All right, so this pretty much concludes our training session today. So I can go over any questions or any section that didn't quite make sense at this time. So you can feel free to unmute yourself or also put it in the chat box as well. All right, and that's okay if you don't have any questions at the moment. But like I said, if you think of any, later on today or at any point in time, feel free to use our support request functionality, and that will make sure that someone from our tech staff gets back to you in a timely manner. All right. Well, I hope everyone has a great rest of your day. And if you haven't done so already, we have another training coming on Thursday. Thank you.